Hello and welcome to this new interview series. Today I'm in conversation with Sian O'Gorman, founder and leader of NYX Electronic Drone Choir. NYX create amazing performances, immersive soundscapes using the female voice and music technology, and amongst all the other cool things they do, they have also composed for TV and video games. In my conversation with Sian, we cover some really interesting topics like pre-performance ritual, how ceremony can contain and inspire creativity, pre-performance nerves, music technology, and so much more. If you're new to my work, my name's Lamb. I am an artist, teacher, and community builder, and I believe that creativity, spirituality, and community are the lost pillars to well-being. I'm so excited that you're joining me for this interview today. Let's go. Welcome very much, Sian. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, thanks, love. Nice to be here with you.
And before our call, I was just sat in quiet. I was thinking, right, if I could just ask Sian one thing, what would it be? And I think it would be that one of the things there's so many things I admire about you, but one of the things I most admire is the quality and tone of your voice. Like the first time I heard you sing, it made the hairs on my neck stand up in a good way. And and I wondered for anyone who, because I know that although there's some things, some things we're born with and some things are natural, but also there's a lot we can learn with our voice. And is there, and for anyone who's just starting to explore their voice or wanting to improve their range or their tone, what would be your top tips or practices for singers?
My top tip is just to have a practice. So like, I think there's a lot of kind of like mysticism around voices in general. And I think like as a kid, I was very into singing all the time. And then I just made sure I went to singing lessons and joined a singing group and all these sorts of things. I think probably when I was 10 and I was obsessed with it, I probably could sing well, I could sing in tune, but I don't think there was anything particularly special other than my real strong intention and drive to do it. And then because I just kept practicing and kept going, I was lucky enough that I started so young that I was able to kind of train so well and so much. And I think actually it's just like any other practice, if it's any other thing that you're doing with your body, just slow, kind of methodical, really kind of what's the word, just it's not even like a discipline, but it's just doing it constantly helps your body just relax and remember how to make these sounds outside of it. So I don't think there are loads of things you can do. There are loads of like, little and all, you can do scales, you can do all sorts of things, but the main thing is just singing and singing something that you love every day. And then your muscles will slowly just start to get stronger and more stretchy. Sorry, it's the morning time. I'm a bit like, whoa. But yeah, in general, I just think it's like any other physical practice. And I think it just takes time. It just takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes dedication. I'm not a particularly disciplined person in any way. I think I was like reflecting on this the other day. Someone asked me like, what's your daily practice? I was like, I think the only thing I ever do every single day is light a stick of incense and drink a cup of coffee. Like that's the only thing I do consistently. But I chuck myself into situations where I have to sing. Like I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing where I have to sing. But if I didn't have to, I probably I wouldn't practice every day or anything. So I've just been lucky enough to just constantly be chucking myself into situations where I have to do it, that I am consistently singing. But it's that consistency for me that's been really helpful. So I just think, yeah, it kind of helps people get out of that thought of being like, oh, I'm not very good at singing. Like same, I wasn't either. Like no one is when they start. No one's, well, it's not true. Some people can, instantly be pretty good at it. And the same with a load of physical practices, like when I started practicing yoga, I was incredibly flexible. So I felt like I was instantly quite good at yoga. So, there's this like thing of like, oh, I'm quite good at this naturally or something. But there's elements of yoga that I really struggle with, and there's elements of singing that I really struggled with. But because I just kept doing it, that's it. So find something that you like to sing, and find something that some way you like to use your voice, and just keep doing it, is my main takeaway from that one.
So you were talking to your friend about practice, and you said, okay, so you don't necessarily have a daily practice, but I'm curious because the work you create is, who many people would say, exceptional. So I know, and I also know that the rest of your collective aren't, for example, they're not all with you in New Zealand now, so you're not practicing now. And it seems like you do this kind of more intensive way of working.
Yeah.
So I'm only kind of learning from watching you, following you, but it looks like you're doing kind of residencies and week longs or 2 week longs, so you can intensively work on these creative projects. How does that work for you? And for example, maybe you could tell us about the process of your debut album and how you refine that over a period of time.
Yeah, sure. So the I think there are many structures of like creating a band or a choir, or these sorts of things, and I would say we're not really in either of those categories. I'd say we run NYX. So NYX is as a little background thing, is like is kind of a multidisciplinary arts project that is coming through music. So it's like a music-led arts project, and it's run by myself and Philippa Niels, who's also a Kiwi. And we run the project together, but it's also like my artist name, and it's also the name of the collective like live performance version of the group. And often we use a lot more singers and recording as well. But because it's structured like that, we kind of rehearse and do live performances more as like a theatre company structure. So we have a show, or we'll have a show, or we'll have a recording project, and I'll cast people according to what I need for that show, and then we'll intensively rehearse it together. It's also because when it started, it was a lot more of like a kind of DIY collective project, where I was just trying to, it was still always run by me, but when we started, I was doing that thing of like, hey, does anyone want to be in my group, and I'll make you all dinner, and like tried to just get people to come to my house and do stuff. And I was like, it'd be really cool, honestly, we'll just sing with loads of electronics, it'll be really fun. And I just had to like really force my friends to be part of it, to be honest. It was quite like, it was really fun, but it was really difficult to get people involved. And that kind of exchange is not sustainable, really, especially if it's kind of your music that you're leading. People need to have an incentive to want to keep doing it. And obviously the group loves the music, but they're also, the reality is we're living in a world where we can't be giving away our time for free. A lot of us, as particularly singers in music, I spent a lot of years just doing a lot of things where people were like, oh, can we do this? We just need some singers. We can't pay you, but and I just kept doing it because I just thought this is the way to get in to this world. But actually, the more we continue to say yes to things like that, the more it just becomes this expectation that vocalists will just do shit for free. And then I remember starting to do some more like professional sessions and stuff, and just seeing, all the orchestral players were very unionized and very like, we only work from this time to this time and we get paid this. And I was like, whoa, that's a bit extreme, like be a bit more flexible. And then I started thinking like, yeah, these people can pay their rent from music, these people can do this. So there's a huge ethical undertone of how we work, and it is that we pay everyone. So that also means that when we get given a gig, that when we get given a recording project, we have to factor in the fact that there's potentially 9 people that are going to be on this tour, and each of them needs a day rate, and each of them things. And once you start adding those numbers up, and then knowing that, the reality for most gigs and venues and promoters and stuff nowadays is like, oh, we've got £500, can you do this? I'm like, shit, man, we can't even get everybody in a room for that much money. So it comes from the rehearsal. The way that we work comes from just the kind of financial reality of music today. I would love to be back in the world where I just am in a choir once a week and go to that and just have a fun time with everybody. I really miss everybody in the group. Like the group is very professional, but it's very very rooted in care and connection with one another, and we really miss each other when we're not together. So And it requires people to do a lot of work on their own before they come into the room, and it also requires people to be, once they're there, they have to be really on it. So that's the other thing. It's just like the level of pressure and intensity is a lot when you can't practice regularly, because there's also this kind of like social pressure of like, oh my god, we're only with each other for 3 days and we're just so excited to see one another, and then we don't see each other for a couple of months or whatever. So hopefully this year we're going to get a little bit of more like regular touring in, because I think that will just be so, every time we do a show it just gets so much better, and every time we do a recording the project just gets so much better. So it's just like, wow, imagine how much this could lift up if we could do this really regularly. But it just costs so much money. So, and we're just independent, we're completely independent, so it's just, yeah, it's a constant. And Philippa's absolutely insanely amazing at finding money and making that money go really far. But there's still just the reality of how much people can. And so often, you know, like the places that are asking us to play are like, oh god, we really want to do that. So we'll just take, we're lucky to have a couple of projects that have managed to kind of, we've done a couple of like computer game projects and stuff which managed to kind of boost the savings up a little bit, so that we can take a loss when there's a really good gig or a really good project where we're like, oh, we really want to do this but it's not enough budget, but we'll just cut a little bit out of the savings in order to pay for this, because it's worth it, you know. But yeah, it's a constant balancing act, and most of it is from financial. But I don't know, there's something I also quite like about the intensity of just coming together for 3 days and just like remounting something or starting something from scratch. It's like, it's cool. That is cool.
And you use a lot of technology.
Mm.
How did you get into that, and then how do you share that with the group? Because I don't know if all the singers, did they all come equipped with these tech skills, because it's quite advanced what you're doing. So did you create your own training to get all the singers on board, or how did you do that?
So when we started, which was 8 years ago now, none of us really knew what we were doing. I was getting into, like, you know, I'm a classically trained singer, and I was doing a lot more contemporary music, and I was really into I was trying to basically be like, record myself as like a solo artist and make stuff that sounded like, probably like I was trying to be like Portishead or Imogen Heap or something. And so I was like getting out my Logic and like playing with all the effects and stuff. And then I had a couple of friends who had guitar pedals, so I was like practicing playing through those. And then I just kind of had this idea of like, how cool would it be if everybody was singing in a circle and these kind of effects processing things. I had another couple of friends who were also doing a little bit of like noisy sound experimenting, but none of them were singers. They were more just kind of like noise or sound artists that were working with that kind of stuff. And then I had a load of friends from my like choir singing world who also loved the sound of it but had never used any equipment. So we just kind of got in a room together. We started like fully skills sharing everything. Like we would just have days where we would all sit around in a circle and be like, how do you do that, like what? And we kind of all found our little bits of equipment that we loved and that sounded really good with our voices, because that's the other interesting thing, is that like each piece of technology really interacts with people's voices in a totally different way. It's like everybody's timbre and natural kind of like breathiness or directness feeds into the all of the magical stuff that goes on inside the equipment and comes out in a totally unique way, which is really fun. But yes, none of us really knew what we were doing. I would say it's interesting because the ones that joined the group who weren't singers felt a little bit like they had to, you know, there's a sense of like, oh, I really need to be good at something in this group, so I'm going to really harness into the technology side of things. And the ones that were really good singers were potentially a little bit more lazy around the technology stuff, and myself included in that. But you just kind of find your piece of tech or your piece of equipment that you're like, this is, I like this one, this suits me in terms of the interface, this suits me in terms of like how it sounds. It's all about wanting to hear yourself back in a way that you like, you know. And then we got Ableton on board, and Ableton was one of our original sponsors, and they took us through a real amazing load of training. And so they still continue to sponsor us today and give us loads of training, and are training us up to be trainers of each other. And Ableton, I think, was the best. Like, I love Ableton so much, and it's become, yeah, it's become like my second instrument, you know. So I feel like Ableton is now, yeah, it's like there's so many things I've made on there or found on there that just sound so cool that I'm just like, this is like, I love this. I love this equipment. I love playing on this. I love making stuff on this. And it's been, yeah, it's been amazing. And then since the group has kind of evolved, you know, people have come in and out, and the new ones kind of come with their own, like, everybody I'd say in the group has got their own individual practice of making music, and some of them are a lot more tech led than others. But the younger ones particularly are pretty like well versed in the in Ableton particularly. So like they teach us a lot really, and there's just so much diversity in what can be done in the voice, and then expanding that out through the electronics is just phenomenal. So yeah, the tech side of things has been really interesting, but I think also what's been fascinating is it's really grown in a time that has also grown. It seems to have grown around us. So when we were first doing it, there was just not that much info out there on YouTube, on anything, to find how to use your voice and how to use multiple voices and perform them live. Every single mixing engineer, every single kind of live engineer was just like, whoa, I've never done this before. Like, what? Like, you got quite overwhelmed by it. And now it's just cool. This is great. We can work with this. But yeah, there's a lot that's kind of grown up around it in this time. We were also, in terms of learning and skill sharing, we were kind of off the ground, and then COVID hit, and then we spent a lot of time on the internet together in COVID, learning stuff together, and it was really fun. We started doing all these kind of these projects where someone would make a line and an Ableton file, and then they'd share the file with the next person, and another person would add something else, and then another person would add something else. It was kind of like, you know, when you have those drawings that you make where you fold up the paper and someone draws the head, and then someone draws the body, and then someone draws the thing. And it was so fun. And that was a really good way of us learning different things, because you could also see what the previous person had done and how they'd done it. And it was just such a fun. And then we ended up making a little like EP out of it. Actually, it was really funny. And just such a joyful way of kind of staying connected over that time and learning some new stuff. And yeah, we were very lucky with all the generosity of all these kind of tech partners that gifted us a lot of stuff at that time as well.
Amazing. So coming back to now, I know you've just got back quite recently from an art residency in Bali.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that, and how many of you were there and what that was like.
Mate, that was amazing. So it was one of Philippa's friends that she met in at a residency called People Festival that she used to work in and participate in. And it's basically like this beautiful villa in Ubud in Bali, and it's in the shape, the house has been like designed in the shape of a sound wave, which is insane. And it's got this massive open amphitheater lounge with all these pianos looking out over these rice paddies. And we, like, basically Philippa sent it to me years ago and was like, oh my god, look at this place. And I was like, wow. And then we just applied like you apply to most things, being like, well, you know, we'll put an application in, but who knows. And then we got an email saying, yeah, you've been accepted. And we were like, oh. And I just couldn't believe it. I love Bali. I've been there before, and I found it to be like incredibly magical. Have you been there before?
No, I haven't. And was it just you and Philippa, or did a few more of you
It
go?
was it. I ended up going, and then there was another visual artist that went, and a writer. And so the aim of the residency is to draw people of different disciplines together. There's 3 bedrooms, so we all stay there, and the intention is that we would potentially make collaborative work, but make work that's very much inspired by the landscape, by the cultural like world of Ubud. And we basically the whole residency is curated by this amazing woman. She's so fucking amazing. And she took us, like, she was the daughter of like basically like the Ubud kind of contemporary art gallery scene. And she just had such a depth of knowledge around contemporary art, but also around, like, she was part of the village, so she was taking us to all these amazing village ceremonies. We were lucky to arrive on the day they have a festival, 2 festivals every 6 months, which are like the festival when we arrived. I can't fully remember, Gulligan and Cooligan. And the day we arrived, the festival was when the gods come down from the sky, and the gods come down from the sky, and they hang out with all the humans for like 10 days, and they offer gifts and they offer knowledge and they party with the humans basically for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, the gods go back up into the skies, and everybody has a huge ceremony to commemorate this time and to also honor this golden ball in the center of them that has gathered all of the knowledge in and has gathered all of the wisdom in. So when we arrived was the day the gods came down from the skies, and then we got to go to the ceremony. That was the kind of integration honoring ceremony at the end, and it was just phenomenal. Like, it was, we basically just got to witness this amazing kind of community sharing. The ceremony was like the whole community was there. It was thousands of people, all in their regalia. All the elders of the kind of temple were all in the masks doing the ancient dances of the kind of stories of Hanuman, and like performing them. All the children were all just like absolutely like enraptured with these stories. Like that was a bit for me that just like really blew my mind. It was like all these small children completely engrossed with like a 5-hour ceremony, and none of them were like, oh, I want to go home, or no, they were just it was amazing. And there was just so many of them. Even the teenagers, the teenagers had their kind of like had their phones out, but they were filming the ceremonies. They weren't like on their phones texting each other. They were like involved, and it was just so beautiful and so sacred, but so casual. I think that's the other thing. It's just like having this real integrated form of spirituality in these places where it's just as normal to get up in the morning and go honor the gods by placing out all these offerings in the front of your house in your own little temples. That's just as normal as reading the paper or having a cup of tea. It's just so integrated, and it's just like, oh, and it's just, yeah, that was really inspiring to me. And the nature that we were in, it was also like it was also the start of rainy season, so it was just pouring down, and it just meant that everything felt like hyper alive. Like all of the plants and the trees and the animals and the creatures and stuff all around us, like it was just like heaving with life. Like it was phenomenal. And the visual artist Ellie, who I spent probably the most time with, it was really, really into creating really kind of psychedelic hypercolor cyanotypes and scans and risograph prints and stuff of all of these kind of spotty toad, frog-like, reptilian, magical plants. And so she was making those. I was in the studio. There's a fully kitted out music studio with beautiful pianos and like amazing sound system. And I was just so like flowing with creativity. I wrote a whole album in a week, and it just went all out. And it was really like, yeah, it was a quite a profound creative time actually. And it really made me remember how, you know, the whole time you got that slight edge of like guilt and or like, I don't know, there's something about living in that level of kind of luxury as well, because we were in a villa. We had like all these people, they were like staff in the villa, you know, like every time I'd get up in the morning someone would come and make my bed and like do my washing, and I was like, no, 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 no. But then that's just how it is. And they were so lovely, and they were just like making us so much stuff, and I was just like, whoa. And so there's just an edge of like, oh god, I don't know, it's almost one of these things where you're just like, I can't believe that I'm allowed to do this. Like, I can't believe that someone's given me the opportunity to do this and I get to do this. So there's like a lot of like, whoa, a feeling of responsibility of like, I'm so lucky to be able to do this, and a feeling of guilt of like, oh, I wish everyone else could do this, or like, oh, but mostly just like, wow, just like this overpowering, just like creative, colorful, psychedelic plant energy just like flowing through. And yeah, and I'm really excited for the music to come out. Actually, the reason why I went there with the intention to make some of an album, I didn't really realize we was going to make a whole one, was just that we were offered to make like a film music library album, which will be hopefully coming out soon. But the film music library is like, I think, you know, often we get commissioned to make music for films, and I think a lot of the time people want us to do like, they're really into doing like folk horror or like horror movies. We get asked to do quite a lot of that kind of stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna make music for a movie that I would want to watch that doesn't necessarily exist, but it's like Planet Earth and Studio Ghibli and like Jodorowsky and like really like outrageous sci-fi magical nature worlds, you know. That's what I want to watch when I go onto the computer at nighttime and I'm like, I want to watch something. That's what I want to watch. I want to watch something that totally expands my mind. So that's the music that I made. I was just like, I'm going to make music for a movie that doesn't exist, but as some kind of like sci-fi world on Earth, you know, that's like honoring the majesty and the kind of alien nature of what we have available on Earth at this time. It's like, yeah. So I did that, and it was really amazing. And yeah, coming back to what I was saying, it's so important for like artists to have space and inspiration. And I felt guilty. I was like, oh god, I don't really feel like I've done that much work this year. And then all of a sudden I'm on a plane to Bali and I get to just be here and make work. And I don't know, I think it was because I was brought up Catholic, and there's always just an element of guilt underpinning everything. But it's just, yeah, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal, and I'm so grateful for that time, and I'm really excited for the music to come out.
Yeah, so I've got two questions sort of following on from that. One is, so I'll ask you both of them and you can answer them simultaneously. So one, I was thinking about, you know, this ceremony and how amazing it is, and how, for me, I grew up devoid of that. You know, I've had such a craving in my life for spiritual ceremony, and I've sought it out. And the things we do here are so pathetic. Well, as in, you know, like, I try and get involved in things, but you know, it's small, isn't it? Because we don't have one strong we're not all of one religion here.
Yes.
In the UK, it's very spread out, so you can go and experience the ceremony, but you're not going to have 1,000 people at it, likely. So there's kind of one thread of following, you know, other ceremonies that you've been to, or other spiritual experiences that have opened your creativity. And then just on a practical level, when will we get to hear this? And is it like a finished piece that you've come back with, or are you going to add more voices, or what, you know, where's it at now? Can we hear that? And then all the spiritual ceremony world.
Yeah, so the film music library that I've made, it's basically like commissioned from a label called Sonatin, and hopefully, I mean, basically I've written all of it, and I have recorded some of the other singers for some extra parts, and I've recorded some cello, and I'm recording some harp when I get back to London. And then once I've got all those bits, I'm going to mix them in and then hand it in. And then because it's just a film music library album as well, it means that it gets to not have to go through the whole, oh, we have to make a big release strategy around this. You know, it just comes out and it just is as it is. And I'm so pumped for that, because I really struggle with the stuff around releasing music in terms of promotion.
Does it still end up on Spotify and things like that?
Yeah, it still ends up on all the streaming platforms.
Wow,
but
great.
it's owned by Sonatin. So it means like it won't be on our Bandcamp. It will just be on streaming platforms. No big hoo-ha. It will just, one day you will just log into whatever streaming platform you have, and NYX will have released a new album and you get to listen to it, and that will be it.
Can't wait for
and
that
then
day.
Hopefully, yes, and then it will also be available. So they put all of their music out onto DSPs, but then they also have a system where if you're making a piece of work, a film or whatever it is, and you want to use some of the music, you can become a subscribing member of them, or you can contact them, and then they run all the publishing around it, and then you can use it through that. So it basically means we don't own any of it, but they paid us a good amount a fair amount to do it. And that to me is just so simple and so clear, and I really like it, because I find releasing music to be so overwhelming. It's such an overwhelming world, and it's so tied up in all of this stuff around your sense of self-worth, and like your sense of like, who am I, and identity crises and stuff. And I hopefully will become more resilient the more I do it, but it's so hard. It's so hard on just like a psychological level to release music and not get caught up into a big mental health spiral around it. So I'm really grateful to have given this opportunity to make music and just let it out into the world and just see what happens. And yes, we don't own any of it. Well, you know, we get royalties on it, but it is, yeah, it just is what it is. And that's relaxing to me. It's just clear. It's not just like, oh, maybe this will be something or do something. It's just like, no, that's just going to come out and people can hear it, and that will be beautiful and
it's all
great.
sorted out up front, and then you can just chill and let it go.
Yeah, nice. It's clear. And it just, yeah, and to just be able to have had that as a project to have worked through when I was away, and being able to channel all this beautiful stuff into it is amazing. So I hope that will come out pretty quickly. Fingers crossed, like April-ish. But I'll let you know. Like it will, you know, we won't do a big campaign around it, but we will post about it. We'll do some things, and hopefully I can get Ellie involved. Ellie, the amazing visual artist, I'd really love to get her involved in like the artwork and stuff, because she's amazing. And it felt so inspired by the colors and stuff she was creating too. So it feels really important to try and get her involved. Yeah, and then in terms of the ceremony stuff, so like shifting onto that, I mean, yeah, there's so much to say about that, and I agree. You know, I've been reflecting on that a lot. My friend Genevieve actually wrote a really beautiful Substack on it yesterday called The God-Shaped Hole, and it was all about her kind of growing up and trying to, you know, coming to your kind of late teens, early 20s, and then trying to find a space in someone else's religion, and thinking, can I be a Sufi, and could I be a Buddhist, and could I be these things, and like trying to find this connection to God, or in whatever form you want to call it, you know, spirituality, or connection to something outside or an inside. And yet the story was all about how, you know, she eventually found the route into it through connecting to others via singing and via leading choirs and via kind of holding spaces for people and having spaces held for her. And I just think that couldn't be, that's it. I think we have had, I was also just reading a really interesting book about kind of basically the fall of pagan practices and how, you know, so many things, but basically like just Protestant energy kind of taking over from Catholic energy and just kind of pulling us away from the sense of immanence and connection to the natural world and the world around us, through, you know, both the way that we were just living with the land, but also the way in which we celebrated it through ritual and all these sorts of things. And then how these kind of slowly over time, these forces came in to make us believe that God was outside of ourselves and God was living up here and living down there. And that was never going to be sustainable, you know. But it makes sense that we're all in a state of a kind of collective fed up atheism, and especially in the UK, there's not really, like, why would you believe that there's a big man in the sky, you know, which fair, some people do, but you can understand why people don't feel they can connect with that so much. But there's such a strong force of people wanting to connect, and that's why we see, you know, we're seeing all this addiction to all sorts of things, because there is a big God-shaped hole in all of us that we're trying to fill with stuff. So yeah, it would be, that's why I think we are, you see a lot, you know, there's a lot of people in Bali, there's a lot of drifting Westerners in Bali that are trying to find their way, in the same way there are in lots of kind of spiritual centers of the world. There's a lot of drifting Westerners trying to find something, and then they find something, they find a community and they find their people and they find some practice. You know, there can be all sorts of conversations around the cultural appropriation of some of it, but there are people searching, and I think we're all trying to kind of navigate and find a new form of relating and communing and celebrating and finding a God or some kind of element of it. There's a lot of us searching for it, and for me, like Genevieve put it so well in this article, those moments have come from collective sounding and singing with other people, and it just feels so deeply human when you're in a room with people, and the bigger the room is, yeah, as you said, you know, like if you can be in a room with loads and loads of people singing, wow, it's so insane. I was very lucky to have found collective singing so early. I think when I was young, I was like 10 or something, and I just was like, I want to be in the opera, and I was somehow then just in the opera. I was in the New Zealand Children's Opera Chorus, and all of a sudden I was on a stage with, like, you know, 40 people singing at the top of their lungs, and I just was like, I mean, I was too young to comprehend what that was, but it was definitely some form of religious experience. I mean, I was also at church a lot, and we were lucky enough to have a very multicultural church, and, you know, once every couple of weeks it was led by the Samoan parish. And if you have ever had the privilege to hear, like, communities of Samoan people sing, it's just like so insane. It's the most beautiful, like, uplifting, deep, like they're all singing like 6-part harmony at the top of their lungs. I think I also probably appreciated it because I didn't understand the language, so it wasn't like, what does all this, like, Lamb of God shit mean? I was a bit more like, wow, what are these sounds and what are these frequencies and what are these, like, harmonies and what is this, you know? That snapped something in me. And then then when I got to sing in opera choruses and sing all these, like, really amazing, like, chorus things, and then I was singing in the New Zealand secondary students choir, and it was just like, wow, yeah, groups of 50 people just singing the most beautiful music from all around the world. And I just was like, this is it, like, this is this is it. And I at that time I always wanted to sing alto as well, so I could be like in the meat in the center of the sandwich. Like ultimately, you know, my voice is quite high, so I'm like a soprano, but I think I was just trying to get that crack of singing in the middle of the choir. But that's what I love. I just love layers of voice. That's my favorite sound, and that's my favorite experience. And that to me feels like a really kind of achievable religious experience for us. People find it, you know, it's that same sensation when people go to like a football game and they're all kind of chanting together, or, you know, more and more now we're all getting involved in going to protests and singing with like a massive group of people going down a street, and it's just like that feels really powerful. And yeah, it feels like these things are coming back. There's a lot more people singing collectively, and hopefully there just becomes some more spaces where that just becomes normal. I'd love to see someday if there was like, you know, imagine if there were as many places to go out and sing with loads of people as there were to dance with loads of people. It'd be amazing. Imagine that. There's just clubs everywhere, but there's singing clubs, there's dancing clubs. It'd be so good.
Or a bit like AA, you know, AA, there's a meeting on every night because people need AA every night. And like, I feel like that about singing. I need, you know, I just need to be with people. It's so therapeutic. And I've been reading a few different things that have really been proving the science of it. So an amazing book called Ritual, where he was a scientist and he's pulled together all these studies where they've wired people up during ceremonies, and the actual amazing things that are happening in people's brain and body. And the other two, which I think you'd be really interested in, it's one author, but she's written two different books. She's called Lisa Miller. She's written one book called The Spiritual Child, and another one is either called, oh, is it here, Awakened or Awakening. But she's a scientist who's looked at, we are all wired for spiritual connection, for religious experience, and if we are devoid of it, and especially during our teenage years when all those faculties come online, then it can be our demise, you know, because then all of that thing that wants to be opened, you're like, no, there's this, that's not a real thing, that's just nothing. Then people don't have a sense of purpose or meaning, or that with singing, I love it because it's such a visceral connection. It's not you know, like you're saying, the Lamb of God reading, you'll feel your body is connected to the other people in the room, and you're all together, and you can smile and look in their eyes, and you're all here. It's a profound feeling of presence.
Totally, exactly. And that level of connection, I think, you know, growing up in New Zealand, I think, you know, New Zealand is an interesting culture, but there was so many spaces for people connecting physically through sport. Like sport here is like the biggest thing ever. It has its own section of the news. That's like rugby has its own section of the news, you know, like it's like more important than anything else. But there's also an amazing choral tradition here too, and there are some absolutely insane choirs. But that thing of being a teenager, like that's, you know, most of the day for most kids, you're in school and the main thing you're doing is think, intellectual mind, blah, 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 get home, do your homework. Blah, 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 blah. So there has to be some kind of outlet where people are connecting through the body, or letting go of that bit of the mind. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense those years. I feel like when I was a teenager as well, it's probably when I felt my most strongly atheist too, because you're also kind of developing your own opinions and ideals, and kind of like breaking away and be like, I believe in this and I believe in this. So to have something really steady and solid and real, like based on actual physical reality, is so important at that time.
Another big question I was just remembered, right? So I had my first question I asked you, and then I had another one that I really was like, I must ask John today. And it's about, because we've been talking about the body and things being, you know, that visceral feeling of singing together. And one of the things I'm working with and I struggle with sometimes is, you know, everyone's bangs on about the nervous system now, and it's, you know, it's we all have a biology. And so, for example, I'm just getting back into showing up more online. So I'm like planning to talk to you and sitting down before to talk to you. And like, it's like fireworks inside, you know, like heart racing. I've got like buzzing up here. And I was like, whoa, this is pretty crazy. And I remember like, and even now, if I get up on stage now, I feel a lot going on, and I'm like, right. And it does normally dissipate. So like now, if I just take a moment, I can feel like it's dissipated, because we've there's kind of an acceleration into coming online. Phoebe Pimlott, who we both know, who's my connection to you originally, that I met you before I met you. She's so cool, isn't she? She told me she's been translating a book all about the nervous system and performance, and I'm like, please, can you get me this book? I like need this book now. Anyway, I think there's something about having a ritual for coming online, so that you feel safe in the coming online. And I haven't figured this out yet. And I just wondered, before NYX go on stage, or before you do anything like this, do you have a way that you feel that acceleration without feeling like it's going to make you want to just like, you know, collapse, or for your things not to work?
Yeah, we absolutely do. And that has been part of the practice the whole time. So I really am also super fascinated in this space where your whole body goes into like hyper, it's not panic, but it's like you can sense how activated you are. Like I get this every time I sing, particularly if I'm singing in front of people in a small setting. That's like my whole breathing goes out. I was at a retreat the other day, and we had a sharing at the end, and I knew I wanted to share a song, but I was so nervous to share it because it was like this small group of people, and it included my family, and I was singing, and it was just, everything was like shaking, and it was just so intense. And I'm lucky enough that I've done it so many times that I can just be with it as it's happening and not judge myself and be like, oh my God, that sounds fucking terrible. That's awful. This is awful. Now I've got to the point where I can be like, wow, this is so fascinating. How this is coming out is so shaky and so heightened. And I have it every single time I sing in front of other people. And I have it every single time like before I was talking to you, I had the same thing. Like I was like, oh, we're about to kind of do something that's public, and that's terrifying for my body. But luckily I've gotten to a place now, as it sounds you have, like, and we've just kind of grown up to know that that's fine. That's just part of it. And it does dissipate and it does clear. For NYX, we do a number of things. We also work with an amazing embodiment director, Imogen Knight. And I've been working with her for 8 years now. And she is phenomenal. She's also like a somatic experiencing practitioner, and works with so many beautiful different groups. She's a dancer. She was originally like a kind of dancer and choreographer, and then has moved a lot more into just getting people to really, really take up the space in their own bodies, particularly in music. I think also, just as a little back thing to that, like the singing training that I grew up with did nothing to go into that nerves thing. There was nothing around that. It was like, this is how you stand, this is how you are, this is how you breathe. So you've got this added element of like rigidity towards like, okay, well, if I just do this and this and this and this, it'll be fine. But there's no like just acknowledgement of the fact that my whole body would shut down when I would, or just completely overactivate, overstimulate when I was about to sing. So working with Imogen, what we do is we always make sure we have a huge amount of time to prepare beforehand. So I make sure everybody's really like vocally warmed up and Usually we are, because we've had to sound check for like 4 hours during the day, because it's a very technical setup, so it takes a long time. And we've also, as we mentioned at the start of this call, we've usually also been like kind of like doing quite a hefty remount or like rehearsal schedule in the leading up days, so everyone's voices are fine, like we're all in a good vocal space. what we need to do is ground down into each other. And the nature of also being on stage in the way that we are is that it's not like a normal choir where you can tune into each other using your ears and using your body as you would in a smaller unit or an ensemble of singers. We're all on a really loud stage with really loud equipment, and we don't use in-ears. We hopefully will eventually at some stage, but I find in-ears, especially when you're singing and trying to connect with other people, really difficult to use. So we still use big monitors, wedge monitors, and so the sound on the stage is so intense that you can't use that usual thing of like, oh, I can hear this person on my left ear or right ear, whatever. Everything is in the ground in these wedge monitors, and we're all sometimes quite separate. We're also using a lot of backlight to make it look amazing and silhouetted, so it means sometimes we can't even see each other either. So we've got all these kind of like sensory cut-offs from one another, so the only thing we have is our own bodies and our own connection to the room around us. So what I usually do is we will spend a lot of time earthing, grounding, shaking, like doing a proper, like, you know, Kundalini vibe shake for quite a long time, just to get that level of energy just really well balanced throughout the body. Because I think that's the other thing, is it's like sometimes it just accumulates in one space, and it's kind of, I think the shake really feels like it works with like a high energy. It also helps bring it downwards. So I think that's the other thing. It's like, that's almost why I love that the monitors are on the ground, because it means that we can kind of start sinking and earthing into the ground and knowing that the sound is coming from the earth in the bottom of the stage. So we do a lot of work in terms of like imagining that the bottom of the feet have kind of roots and mycelial networks connecting one another to each other on the stage. And then I work with kind of like solar plexus connection. So imagining almost like, you know, in the movie, I always like to use the image of like Donnie Darko, that movie where it's got all those kind of like iridescent kind of holographic wormholes coming out of the center of the body. And so imagining that we're also all connected by this kind of interwoven network of kind of solar plexus energy between one another. And then the ears almost now come last. So it's like the head area is last. So it's like everything in the body really needs to be connected from like the chest downwards. And then the head's kind of for you, it's your resonating world to go outwards and around. But yeah, it's a lot of earthing. It's a lot of feeling the feet on the ground. I also love performing with no shoes on. It's not, health and safety doesn't always allow that, but I really like performing with no shoes on. But yeah, we do the warm up is really important. The connection time is really important. We actually took an amazing recording. Philippa made an amazing recording of our warm up, our connection time at this festival that we did in Berlin, in Kraftwerk, and like this, we were up on like the 27th floor or something in this like amazing concrete chamber, so you can hear all the sound from the festival below, and we're kind of all tuning into one another, and we're listening to this beautiful voice note from Imogen, and then we go down this elevator down like 20 floors into the bottom layer, and then it opens up into this massive wall of sound. But that's a really good, we're wanting to release it at some point. We will. It's just like a field recording of like about 11 minutes of this process. But the warming into each other in the space is super important. But the other really important thing is the post, like what happens when we come off the stage. Because as you would know as well, it's that you go through that process of being like highly activated in your body before you go on. Sometimes actually for me, it depends. If it's a massive audience, I feel more calm because I have less of an individual connection with people in the audience. So I'm like, ooh, and then I feel like I'm more performing to the space and the environment. The start is always activating. There's also a lot of stuff at the very start of our set that can go wrong. So there's a lot of things where like something won't work and we'll be like, oh, and then usually it evens out in the middle. And then, you know, as you say, you kind of sink into the sound and you sink into your body, and then it does dissipate. But what does happen is you are still riding on adrenaline that whole time. Like you are really like the sound, everything. It's really, 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 really stimulating, that environment. That's why we love it, you know. That's why it's powerful, and it really like, whoa, it's like you can feel it, like it's like very visceral. And then when you come off the stage, your body is still in this like adrenaline overload. So that to me is like the key point. And we all come off, and my request to everyone is, please don't engage in speaking, please don't engage in like conversation. Just we come back into a circle and we just shake with each other for 5 minutes. Because so often you come off stage, like in previous projects that I've been in, you'd come off stage, the instant thing would be like, someone would be like, oh, I fucked that bit up in the fourth song, and then I did this, and everyone's like, no, you did really good, and then you just go into a room where there's a million people around you being like, well, that was amazing, or blah, 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 and it's just still all of this energy, and then my whole body's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And then I'm just like, okay, I can see there's some champagne over there or something. I need to like neck a glass of that, or like I need to do something. And now we're like, whew, okay, that's also not sustainable. So it's coming back as a unit, because we've just made this amazing kind of like piece of work together. It's coming back. It's just letting the body sink back down, still having that sense of like the group, the hive mind, still honoring that hive mind of the group and that hive energy of the group, and then slowly but very surely just re-individuating. So just gathering the energy back into your own body, just really remembering the boundaries and layers against you, but that are between you and the world around you, and just really remembering, okay, I've got skin, I've got bones, I've got muscle, I've got my own brain. Gathering that back in, then very slowly just going back into the green room, having a chamomile tea, you know, just like really just, and then re-energizing and restarting to talk to other people. But that to me is very important, because all the times I haven't done that, I've woken up the next morning being like, whoa, you know, and feeling really down and really, I know a number of people that do, you know, that's our kind of form of collective ritual. In terms of recording, I've also started doing my own kind of personal tarot practice before I record now, and my own personal like casting circles and casting, you know, asking for support from seven directions and ancestors and various goddesses and gods and stuff that I want to call into the room. But that to me feels very personal, and I don't want to lay my own kind of like specific spirituality on the group. So that one feels like a one that we can all do, and it doesn't matter what you believe in. It's just like we all have a body and we're all connected energetically, and that feels like a thing that's a thing that we all share. But yeah, I know a number of people who perform and they do rituals where they will literally cast a circle, and they will either, you know, place flowers around the edge of the stage, or put salt around the edge of the stage, or do all sorts of things that just mean they've got this like kind of barrier and this holding of their own energy. Because I think, you know, we're finding out more and more and becoming more and more kind of open through these processes of kind of unfolding into creativity. And it does mean that the flow is amazing and the creativity is amazing, but it does also mean that you've got this added layer of kind of vulnerability and intensity that can come in. So you've got to be quite careful. You've got to be really careful, just like, you know, in any kind of ceremonial work, and this does feel ceremonial in a way. You do spend a lot of time calling in protection and just making sure there's like a cleaning and a cleansing and a clarity and a holding of your own space before you can engage with deeper work. So, and then an honoring to close that at the end, so that the body and the spirit knows like that is complete. We are complete now. The circle is now back open. That feels really important.
Talking of closing, that hour has completely flown by. Is there any last thing you want to say, or last thing you'd like to shout out?
We've got a few things. I'm teaching a workshop in London on the 8th of February, which is next Sunday. I'll be back. And that's at On Being, and they've got a new studio. So we were previously only able to hold about 15, and now we can hold like 35. So come along. And then we've got a gig, myself and AJ. There's a duo version of the NYX show, and we've got a show on the 12th of February at the Hackney Bathhouse. And then we've got some very exciting announcements also that are coming out from another show that we'll have announced very soon, of the whole group performing in London. So that's exciting because we haven't been able to do that for like a whole year. So this is huge. And then we've got a massive installation also opening in March. So it's a lot of good stuff coming up. And then hopefully this film music library album will also come out soon too. So a lot of good things to keep connected from.
Amazing. I'll make sure I put links in the podcast online. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Laura.
It's been really inspiring. I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Oh, thanks, babes. Loads of love. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening today. You can visit the show notes to find links to all the books and different things that we mentioned in this episode. And if you'd like to follow Sian and her work, you can visit nyx-edc.com. That's nyx-edc.com, or you'll find her on Instagram, instagram.com/nyx.edc. I will make sure that these links obviously will be in the show notes too. And if you'd like to follow this interview series and follow what I'm doing, you can visit lauralamn.com, and Lamb is spelled Lamn. Look at me now. And you'll also find me on social media. I'm mostly on Instagram, instagram.com/Laura Lamb. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you here again soon. Bye.